Um, if you have missed any of our previous meetings, we've been posting these up to our YouTube channel, as well as our website. So if you ever want to log back in and see anything, we've been trying to get those up by the next day. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm not sure what number this is and how many weeks in a row we've done these, but definitely have become something I look forward to on Wednesday nights. And good to see you all and connect. So tonight, we're actually going to start off with one of our social workers, Clint, has volunteered to join us tonight to give his expertise. Some of you might remember that at an in-person parent association meeting a few months ago, he gave this presentation about trauma, which we've posted that up on our website as well if you wanted to see those slides. So I'm sure he could answer questions about that, but it also prompted me to invite him to come back on to share about some just new updates that would be very, very relevant for this time. So Clint, if you want, I can share my screen and show your slide deck. Does that work? You are muted.
Sorry, casualty. Yeah, that's great, except for, will you flip the slides for me?
I absolutely will.
Oh, great. Oh, it gives me so much power. Great.
All right, there we go.
So, hi, everybody. I can't really see the chat. Let's see. So if you are having like issues, somebody, Venus, Chad, someone just like stop me.
I'll help, definitely, no problem.
Great, thank you. So I wanted to, Liz talked to me about presenting today, and I thought that, sorry, I'm just like getting, okay, there we go. I thought that self-regulation was a topic that I am running up against a lot in my work, both at Maker as well as I am manning the New York State crisis line. So the clinical work that I'm doing there with people who are calling in is a lot around just like regulating ourselves in the midst of like all of the traumatic experiences that we're all navigating daily. So that's kind of the impetus for talking tonight. Liz, do you want to flip to the, cool. So in order, I think, to talk about self-regulation, I think the first step is to talk a little bit about just like a behavioral baseline or like homeostasis. So what I mean by that is how you feel when it's like a typical day. And the thought that's probably going through your head, hopefully, is like, oh, I just kind of feel like me, which is the right thought. So homeostasis, a science term, is when I think, Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, but to my social work brain, it just kind of means when everything is balanced. So you have the awareness to like, oh, like that person said this to me and it kind of made me feel this way, and then you go about your day. Or you're in traffic and you're feeling frustrated, and then you're not in traffic and you're not feeling frustrated. So there's like ups and downs, and you naturally balance those things. So with the understanding of like a baseline of our behavior and our awareness to like what things are bringing up is when we start to talk about how we then regulate that. So self-regulation is essentially like managing your emotional temperature. More specifically, it's about your ability to efficiently and effectively navigate yourself back to a place where you can be more calm and alert. So let's go forward before we go. Yeah, let's go forward. So what like the actual thing that we're regulating in our body is our central nervous system, and the central nervous system is made up of two specific parts. The first one, Liz, you can flip. The first one, the first part of the central nervous system is the sympathetic nervous system. This is the part that is responsible for like prepping our bodies for emergency in the event that we're in a situation like that. So the example that I use a lot with the kids at school is like when you're watching a scary movie. When I lived in Ohio, I used to say when you go to a haunted house, because that's like a Midwestern thing, but not so much in the city. So I've reverted to a scary movie. So when you are watching a scary movie or any movie, right, that like something happens that you're not expecting, when that thing happens, the first thing is that you like breathe in, and it's like it's a natural response, and it is triggering. It's your sympathetic nervous system being triggered because your body, it's like a surprise to your body. And when that happens, your body, since it's unexpected, in that moment, the reflex is to prepare for emergency. The counterpart to this part of our central nervous system that helps us stay in homeostasis is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is simply the part that runs counterintuitive to that. And the example that I use for the parasympathetic nervous system with the kids is, you know, in the summer, when it's so hot here and you like walk down the platform to the train, it's like 15 degrees hotter and the train's not coming and you've like sweat through your clothes and you just feel disgusting. And then the train pulls up and you step in and it's air conditioned. What's the first thing you do? And the kids always go, oh, and that's exactly right. Like it's the part of your body that's responsible, the part of your central nervous system that's responsible for relaxation. So when you're naturally experiencing things throughout your day, your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system are working in tandem with one another. So something happens and you're frustrated, the sympathetic nervous system amps, and then the parasympathetic nervous system takes over and brings you back down. So that's like what causes this like roller coaster that's happening. So when we talk about self-regulation, we're talking about when things are not balanced and the sympathetic nervous system, the one that's prepping you for emergency, takes over, either because there's a true emergency or your body is replicating the feelings of a true emergency. So that is when our like emotional temperature goes up, and it's when the body, the nervous system in the body is unbalanced, and a lot of times that's called not a lot of times, another like less scientific or less technical way to explain that is the fight, flight, or freeze response. And that phenomenon it's a completely natural response that keeps us safe. And the interesting thing here is that fight, flight, or freeze is the way that we each have developed over like our life, the way to respond to emergencies. Some people freeze completely, some people they're getting out of there, and then some people respond to that to like run towards the emergency. And depending on you know, your home environment and the way you were raised, or perhaps some of your lived experiences, everyone responds to that differently. But like taking the context out of a true emergency. So if you're standing on a street corner and there's a car accident right in front of you, that is a traumatic moment that could cause fight or flight. But let's not talk about like a true emergency. What we're talking, the context for self-regulation that I am kind of targeting today is when the body starts to react. We're triggered by something that isn't a true emergency, but we still start to get a lot of those physiological responses. So that is anxiety and stress, and that is like literally everywhere that we turn right now. I mean, even when you're sitting in the comfort of your own home and you're watching the governor's like address, like those things can be really triggering and could make the body, the central nervous system, feel imbalanced in a way that fight, flight, or freeze can be like triggered, even though there's not like a traumatic thing that's happening outside. So I want to talk a little bit about fight, flight, or freeze, but before we do that, I just want to pause to see if like everyone's with me, if there are any questions that are lingering out there.
No questions have shown up on the chat yet.
Okay. Yeah, so I think this fight or flight response is it's kind of like household knowledge, I think, at this point, and we all like talk about it. But I do want to just make sure that I'm clearly stating that we're not necessarily talking about like a traumatic event as much as what happens when these things are triggered in our bodies when there isn't a traumatic event. Sometimes they're called panic attacks. Sometimes it's just like, I'm stressed out, the kids will say. But again, this is like this human phenomenon is a reflex that we can't control. So when the central nervous system is unbalanced, a lot of times that will feel like, the things that I listed here. So fast breathing or difficulty catching your breath. Your heart might feel like it's racing, like you might feel it in your wrist or your neck. You might even hear it like in your inner ear canal. There's sweating. You might feel like your muscles might be tense. So all of these things are ways that your body is telling you that you are prepped for emergency. It is like your body is sending adrenaline to all corners of its being and you're ready to react. So when we look at self-regulation, we are looking at how can your body isn't doing what it needs to do internally to balance. The parasympathetic nervous system is not able to like combat the sympathetic nervous system. So we have to like do some external things to help bring some of these physiological responses back into our control to help make more rational decisions. Because that's, I can't tell you how many times students have come into my office that are experiencing one or many of these and are utter panicked. So they're definitely not in a rational state to make decisions for themselves. So when we talk about mindfulness and self-regulation, I'm helping students, or they're helping themselves to come back to a place where they can have a better awareness. So I wanted to take just a few minutes, like 2, 3, for us to go into some breakout rooms and for you to just like talk about with each other some of the ways that how do you experience fight or flight in your own life? Because it can literally be, it's different for everyone. So I think Liz is going to break us up into some small groups, and we'll just take Liz, let's just take like a couple minutes.
Cool.
And then we'll come back together.
All right, it should be working.
I'm gonna be honest. I think that for me, I don't know, Liz, I don't know if you can like vouch for this, but I think that my response would be more like fight, but not really. It's more like take action in like a crisis moment. So I guess that falls under fight. Because I don't think it would fall under the other two. What do you think, ladies?
I would totally think, Venus, that you are in the fight category.
My category, right?
Yeah, you jump into any challenge that comes your way.
Oh. Leslie, Simone.
Hi, this is Kari's mom. How are you?
Oh, good. We miss Kari so much. How are you?
Good. He says he's not sure if he wants to come back to school. No, I'm just kidding.
He needs to stop playing. I was ready to be like, what? No. Cannot have him come back.
I'm more of a fight. I would jump into it. I usually don't back down unless it's absolutely necessary.
Fair.
So, I mean, I would go right into whatever it is, actually.
Fair. I hear you on that. What about you, Leslie? Ooh, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Nope, Leslie, we can't hear you. Not sure. I'm sorry about that. Oh, something's happening.
I think our time is up and we're going to start going back to the main room.
Okay, let's head on back. Sorry about that, Leslie.
I don't know what happened.
This thing.
I was in mid-sentence and here I am.
Like the Twilight Zone.
It's like you got beamed out. You know?
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, sorry, that always happens with the breakout rooms. At some point they end and you come on back. But
God bless you.
yeah, we figured we'd try this out that way. We could get more people just talking to each other.
No, I like it. I'm actually used to it because I had to finish my the second half of my school semester via Zoom, and we'd go into these breakout rooms, and this would happen a lot. And sometimes the class would just end, and we'd have to go back to class. So
yeah, it's always a little awkward. Let me go back to the slide deck so you all can see where we're up to.
I actually was curious if anybody felt like they wanted to share out like one or two physiological responses that they have for this fight or flight. Yeah, please.
I mean, I can do, for me, I know exactly when it's coming. If I have a sense of stress, I can feel that adrenaline shot. And it's literally like all the blood moving inward, my heart pounding, headache eventually, and at the heavy breathing, and just panic just sets in.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take much
Mm-hmm.
to get there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Maybe one more person, two more people? Or not?
This is Stephanie. I would say it's, again, the racing heart, I would say, is definitely one, and I forget to breathe, and that's also a marker.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. One more person? Okay. Well, I'm gonna, we'll keep going. If you think about it and want to share in a second, you can. So I listed here some of the tools that I use, although the only one that I'm gonna kind of take us through this evening, and I believe to be the most powerful, is a breathing exercise. But I think, you know, I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence. Like, we all can breathe. We're doing it, you know, all the time. But I want to make sure that I'm clear about why this is impactful. And there's a ton of research behind. So the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system are linked together by the breath. They both involve the phenomenon of breathing as it is a reflex. So we don't think about breathing during the day ever, really. You can control it when you want to, but like when you are absent from thinking about it, it still happens. So when the sympathetic nervous system has taken over, our breath naturally is faster, it's more shallow, and that is because of some like scientific reasons and what the body is being prepped for. Inversely, when the parasympathetic nervous system is enacted, the breathing is deeper and it is more meaningful, and it's more connected to relaxation. So the inhale is connected to sympathetic, the exhale is connected to the parasympathetic. So when you are unbalanced and you're feeling a lot of the things that you guys were just sharing and we shared in our breakout rooms, which is the cold sweats, the racing heart, the shallow breathing, maybe it's shaking. I'm thinking about all the things that walk through my door when I'm at Maker, you know, all the ways that the kids are feeling when they're kind of panicked. The counter to that is exhale. So it's important that when we're doing breathing, we're doing deep breathing, not only are we activating the mind, which I'll talk about in a second, but that we're taking the mindful opportunity to exhale longer than we're inhaling. That means you are sending a overarching, a very powerful message to the entire body of relaxation. So kind of what I do when I guide students through this, and I want to be clear, like there's the magic in this is to get them to a place where they can think rationally about how they're feeling and they're not panicked that they're like dying, which is a very common, like, Clint, I think I'm dying, I don't know what's going on. So I'm trying to help them get to a place where they can recognize, oh, I'm just panicked a little bit, right? So that's what the breathing technique, that's how I utilize it. And I'm just going to lead us through a little bit of kind of how I would lead the students through. So I'm going to ask you to kind of sit wherever you're sitting. If you are have a phone that you're holding up to your ear, take one hand if you can and just kind of place it on your thigh, feet flat on the floor if you can do that. And then I want you to take a deep inhale through the nose. So breathe in, completely fill up the lungs. And then just part the lips, exhale. Do it again, fill up completely, really feel the lungs expand in the chest, and then let that go, breathe out. Now do it again for a count of 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for a second, and now breathe out for 5. Breathe out, 4, 3, 2, 1. Repeat again, fill up completely, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. Now breathe out, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold it. Take another sip, breathe in. Now exhale, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So in this exercise, as you can see, I'm very mindfully focusing our energy on the exhale. What I would do during this time, this would be something that I would replicate over and over and over again. Once I have the system down that we're practicing, which is that breathing exercise, then I'm going to give them something to think about, right? Because you want to occupy the mind as you're occupying the body. So physiologically, we're occupying the body with that breathing exercise. We're tapping scientifically into their sense of relaxation. And now I'm going to give them something to think about in their mind, because oftentimes racing thoughts come with stress and anxiety. So I'm going to give them things like, you're safe, you're here, you're strong, you know, very small things to think about as we're like taking their temperature, which is like skyrocketing, and like bringing it back down to a place where it's a little bit more rational. You can Google visualizations, body scans, muscle tension and release. All of these are wonderful ways to also tap into the parasympathetic nervous system. They're a little bit more nuanced, and I think just for time's sake, I think the power and the punch is behind deep breathing, and it's the one that I use all the time. I like when I'm working the crisis line throughout the week, I'm doing more breath work than I'm doing anything else, just to kind of like help people regulate. Once that regulation happens is when you then have a rational conversation around, all right, so we just like experienced some stuff, but we're safe, we're here, then like, let's talk about it. Liz, if you want to just like flip to the last slide. So I just kind of, I said, and I say to the kids all the time, that there's no magic in self-regulation. It is merely a way to get us to a place that we're more dropped into who we are in the present moment, and like what we're experiencing, that we can utilize some coping strategies and be more rational. So the whole point in self-regulation is getting to a place where you're more rational than you were. And I think that that's kind of the frame that I kind of end with the kids. My perspective is that then I am teaching them, you know, some coping strategies and more clinical things on my part, and perhaps, you know, helping them to tap into them. But the regulating is just trying to get the physiological way that the body is experiencing the moment, stress and anxiety, to get that to feel like it's a little bit more under control.
Clint, there's a great question in the chat.
Yeah, I'm actually ready for questions, so please.
Yeah, Lisa Marie asked, sometimes in great periods of stress, I can't even get a significant breath in. How do you suggest we handle that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that, whose question is this?
Lisa Marie.
Lisa, thanks for the question. I think that that is completely understandable, and I would recommend just continuing the cycle. So if the breath in sounds like, you know how when you yourself have been crying really hard and you take it, it's like a jolted breath in, that's completely natural. And the longer that you are inhaling and mindfully trying to work on the exhale, that those things will, you'll see that it kind of subsides almost in a way. So I took us through, I think, 3 rounds. I mean, I would stay with it for 30 rounds if you needed to, or working with the younger people that may be in your home as they're feeling stressed out. It's like, I always say, consistency creates results. So the longer that you just stay with the cycle, you'll start to see some of those things subside.
Gwen also asks, sometimes these events happen on the go. Does this work if you're walking, shopping, etc.?
Yep. This is the secret that I tell the kids at school, is because with deep breathing is, it's not, you don't have to be dramatic about it. The power is in the exhale. So if you are mindfully breathing out longer than you're breathing in, you are sending the right message to your body. And walking meditation is like a thing that I'm into, perhaps not everyone. So like if you're walking in the city, it's even better, because you can kind of just zone out and do your thing. So I think that you don't necessarily have to just be in your living room. It's more about connecting. It's the mind-body connection, and really trying to connect yourself to the exhale and using that as a method to like bring yourself down from that high emotional temperature with occupying the mind. I'm safe, I'm strong enough, this will pass, I'll move through this. And if it's not you that's experiencing it, you know, those are some of the things that you can tell your children or their friends or whomever you happen to be coaching through that moment.
Yeah, even more questions in the chat. For how long do we need to do the deep breathing for it to have an effect? That was from Evie.
That's a great question too. I think that's different for everyone. I think what you're looking to, again, there's like, I want to be super clear that deep breathing isn't it's not like a Tylenol. It's not going to like completely take away your headache. But I think what you're looking for is to have less of a panicked response. And if your heart is racing and you are doing this deep breathing and your heart's still racing, then I would like question, is my surroundings conducive to me calming down? Like if you're sitting in the middle of Times Square trying to calm yourself down, perhaps that's not the best environment. If that's all you got, then that's all you got. But I think that making sure that your environment is working in your favor, you're really connecting to the breath, you're giving your mind something to think about that's positive, that is, you know, you being on your side, and then you're just giving yourself time to feel like you're in control. Because the difference is like when your emotional temperature like explodes, oftentimes that runs hand in hand with you feeling like you're not in control of your body. Perhaps that may be true. We're looking for the deep breathing is the hope is to give you the feeling like, okay, I am in control. I still feel like a lunatic inside, but I know that I'm in control, right? So we're looking to bring that control and rationality back. Even if your heart is still physically, you feel like it's racing, it doesn't feel like it's going to pop out of your chest.
What other questions do you all have? And you don't have to just put them in the chat. You can also just jump in.
Yeah.
Gwen asked another great question. Get that this works for panic, but what about extreme anger?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gwen. When I'm working with families and couples, a lot of times I do deep breathing to connect with a more rational part of self. So I think that, again, it can speak to you just having like a deeper like connection, a more grounded version of you. I call that being dropped into yourself. But with anger, sometimes that we are triggered to respond and say things before we think them through. And I think that this is a grounding technique to help you just like be a little bit more dropped into who you are and what you're truly feeling versus just like saying the first things that come to mind. So I don't know necessarily if it is the exact, not going to take the angry feelings away. What it could do though is give you a moment to just kind of like bring it all together. Just reading the chat.
Evie brings up a really great question, which is, have all the students learned this, or is it just the ones that come to you in crisis?
That is a good question. I don't know that I can say that all the students have learned it. I am using it with the students that are in crisis. Yeah, I can definitely say that. Some of them are more apt and buy into it more than others. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Yeah, I also think it does bring up a good point. We were sharing earlier with our staff different strategies of things we can do during advisory. And this is making me think that this would probably be a great advisory session to do with all of our kids in small groups. Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Katie. My student is Keaton McKeachin. I just wanted to share that my cardiologist suggested to me to start meditating some time ago. And that's really helped me deal with stressful situations, just learning how to breathe properly. And it's something that I try to share with my boys, sharing the techniques that I've learned with them through some of the meditation apps that are available. Just so that they know how to handle themselves in situations where they feel a little panicky and feel like they may need to rely on breathing techniques to help them. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. And, you know, if there's anyone who ever feels the need, that feels like they need to just settle themselves. And my husband's been teasing me because today I've been doing my self-care stuff, just, you know, gardening and being on my own and doing some spa stuff.
Yeah, she's ignored us all day.
Yes, pedicures, manicure, the whole deal. Just, you know, just to get back to feeling like myself.
There's a lot of interesting research articles out about mindfulness in schools, meditation in schools, and I've read a couple that are pretty humbling around schools that have like school-wide meditation practice. Yeah, there's such brilliance, and I think it's like meditation offers, if you can get the buy-in piece, which is hard for some of our kids because I've tried it, but if you can get the buy-in piece, it offers such a profound self-discovery piece that I think is really important.
It's really helped me.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that.
And some people have shared some of their favorite apps for meditation in the chat. So if you're looking for one, there might be a good one in the chat there.
Oh,
there are also tons. I mean, if you just type meditation into YouTube, I oftentimes, because the kids get tired of hearing my voice, I will put a guided meditation on. There's a couple that I like really well, and we'll do it together in my office. Ones I usually try not to go over like 1 or 2 minutes, but those are all free, so on YouTube. So feel free to like Google and just find someone's voice who feels soothing. And that's a lot of the like visualization, that kind of what I was meaning when I was talking about that I put in the slide deck, is like some of that kind of meditation stuff.
Also, just something I really appreciate that you said was taking care of yourself. I think that as a parent, I have a 6-year-old, and a lot of my focus goes on her and getting her stuff done, that I forget about myself. Like, I always feel like I'm holding my breath and running through a day. But I just really appreciate that. That allows me, like, I know what I should do tonight. And, and it might involve watching Insecure. And I'm okay with that.
Oh, that's a good one.
But like, being able to acknowledge that you need to take time for yourself, I think is huge. And I forget that. And today I met with a teacher, and and he was just like, I'm so tired of grading. I was like, that you can take moments that are just for you. And I think that gets lost because our energy and focus is on the kid. But I think in order to do the best for the kids, there has to be some care on our side. So.
And we're all just at home, and the day is it just keeps going. And unless you stop it, it's not going to stop.
Yeah, so true. But thank you for sharing that.
Karen asked a perfect question for Clint. What do you think about yoga in the context of calming?
Well, I teach yoga, so I think it's awesome. Yeah, I'm a yogi. I think for me, it's just the mind-body connection. So meditation helps people have the mind-body connection. Yoga helps people have the mind-body connection. The mind-body connection comes for me when I run, which is pretty counterintuitive to yoga. But I think it's about finding what works for the person that's in front of you. For me, I mean, I have 500 of them, right? So I have to find what works in that moment to help the mind connect with the body in a way that me and the kid can combat what they're feeling. So I have found that deep breathing exercises work for the widest variety of them. But I think when you start to look at more niche things like yoga, like meditation, they're brilliant.
Anyone else have any other questions?
We talked about trauma in general. Is there anything, and I missed the beginning, so maybe you covered this, is there anything in particular about trauma in this weird time of a pandemic?
Can you say more about, you just went, there you are. Can you say more about that?
Yeah. Yes, I'm a researcher in my job, so I'm thinking about the deep implications of this on a business level and among adults, but I realize that the generation of our children, this is going to have a profound impact in a traumatic way on who they are and what they become. Hopefully another greatest generation fixing all the mess we've left for them. But recognizing that it's like societal trauma, is there any, I don't know, I'm asking a lot, but is there anything we can do for them on a societal level?
What I'm thinking about as that relates to our community at Maker is how we will support such a variety of different traumas, acute and societal, environmental. Like there's just so much that we're all dealing with. And the resiliency that each person holds for what they're dealing with is different. I think, at the basis of all trauma work is helping people. Sorry about hair in my mouth. Sorry. I'm so sorry. So unprofessional. I think at the basis of all trauma work is helping people find their voice. But you have to be cautious about that. So I think what I'm thinking about specifically in response to your question is like, how do I help people find a voice that is healing and therapeutic and not anything else? And I think that since we are not out of the woods and the trauma is continuing to happen, I just found out 2 days ago that one of my family members was hospitalized over like yesterday and is in pretty grave condition. So, we're all experiencing it like we don't know, what's around the next corner. So I think compassion and tenderness is what I'm like continuing to hold. And, but I'm open to any and all suggestions that anyone has. Please email me, tell your friends to email me, because I really am thinking critically about what what structures I can put in place for our community when we get back that's going to be therapeutic and healing for them, because I think that this is deep and it runs deeply for every family in a different way.
You just said something I didn't really understand, so sorry to ask for clarification, but you said you try to help them find their voice. What was the rest of the phrase? And
well, that's like the basis of all trauma work. That is helping people who have experienced a traumatic situation find their voice in their lived experience. But there are a lot of other pieces that go into that before there's like the safety of that, or that even really working. So I think what I'm really thinking about is how do we like hold smaller subsystems of our community in a way, being, when I say we, I'm meaning the maker faculty, to help families have a voice to share or deal or heal with what we've all had to experience. And I don't have all the answers to that, but I am interested in collaborating with whoever feels like they do have some thoughts, because I think it's going to be a task that isn't just falling on my shoulders or Luke's shoulders or Liz's shoulder. Like, it's going to be all of us together holding one another, because this is citywide, worldwide, you know.
Yeah, it's very much something I'm seeing in the chat of a lot of people sharing different examples of, as we transition back, some of the areas that could induce some trauma and just a lot of fear for students, for you all, sending your child back to school. And I don't think we have the answer, but it's very much something we're thinking about, of how do we transition back to school in September in a way that saves space and honors all the emotions and experiences that our students have had while we haven't been able to see them in person. And just trying to honor that and build it into our school and help them transition back to the classroom.
One thing, I do have some very specific trauma training that is meant for individual people, right? So what I'm thinking about now is like, how do we take perhaps that structure, and is there a way that I can work with the rest of our team to, can that structure support our school environment in some way, right? I obviously will be doing individual trauma work with students and families who need that, but how can we like blow that back a bit and look at a more meso or macro version of our community? Open to suggestions, people. Please email me.
That gave us all a lot to think about. Thank you, Clint, for all of those strategies. I feel like every time I hear Clint do one of these presentations, I get things that I'm like, I'm going to use that myself. But I also just want to honor that we've got about like 15 minutes left, and want to open it up to, if anyone has other questions, we can continue talking about this and continue asking Clint questions. But if you have other questions as well about just anything that's come up for you over the last couple of weeks, go ahead and jump in.
I think like what we're dealing with a lot in our home, emotionally, I think that Liam is doing okay in that sense, but I think like what we've been dealing with a lot is a grieving and a sense of loss of being in school, which blew my mind away, but he actually can't wait to go back to school. But there's a sense of loss of the relationships and the activities and his sense of agency throughout his day. And I find myself a lot of times not really having an answer for him. Like he said, but we're going back in September for sure, right? And I can't answer that. Like I don't know, and you certainly don't want to answer things in a way that it could, you know, add on to that sense of loss. Do you have any suggestions on, you know, being able to like say, yes, you know, we're acknowledging that you're grieving at this moment, but how do you not stay in this state where you're just grieving the loss?
Was that question for me? I'm sorry. Or is that posed to
Yes,
the whole group?
I'm sorry. Yes, it was for you.
Well, I was typing in the beginning, so I am full transparency. I didn't hear the very beginning of what you said, but the last part is grieving is a process, and everybody grieves differently. And I think that I don't have the answer to that, because I think that there's one bucket that it would be like my mom would respond to me and say, "Oh, come on, you need to like snap out of it," right? But then the like clinician in me says like we need to honor the space that like this difficulty is creating and let people move through that at their own speed and pace. And I think that the reality is probably somewhere in the middle. And I think what my job is in all this is to help families hold the like what the in-between looks like, and provide support if we feel like students are stuck. And I think that there's a big possibility that students are going to get stuck, because while like today I woke up and I like hate everything. I hate everything. I'm like I have no reason to be in a bad mood, but I am in the worst mood. Like I was just talking to my husband and I said, I hate everything today, but there's no reason for that. But I think that that's just like what this is doing to us. And I think honoring the fact that like tomorrow I'm going to wake up and it's going to be different. And that like we just have to help the push and pull, and I think now I'm just like babbling, but I think that my role in what you're saying is I think to help hold families that perhaps are feeling a little stuck.
And there is this vacillation, isn't it? Like we hate the situation. Like for me, I can feel the pulling and the pushing, where I actually hate the situation of us being, confined to home for the majority of the day, and it's uncomfortable. But on the other hand, I've spoken to other people as well, like we also have this like feeling of panic or fear of like going back outside as like before, and not really quite knowing how to act, not really quite knowing how to be, not really quite knowing like what you're supposed to do, post this thing. I mean, it's going to be a new situation, how you navigate all of that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to just add, because I was still navigating back and forth through the Zoom, but one of the things somebody wrote in was that there is fear and anxiety around not being at school, and then also some of that same feeling about summer plans that people had made. Kids thought they would get jobs, they would have working papers, and they would have different opportunities. And one of the things that I noticed with my kids is that sometimes they don't really want to try something new. And I've been really trying to push let's try something new. Like, on Friday, I signed them up for a Black Girls Who Code event. And they were like, Mom, and it's a Friday and it's after school and it's this. And they all absolutely loved it. It was only 1 hour. So just things that, maybe that you thought there was a summer program or a summer, some kind of event that you were going to get your child in or that they applied for. Double check to see if they're offering it from a virtual perspective, because a lot of people have created virtual kinds of summer programs. And I know it's not perfect, but I do think sometimes trying to keep them a little busy and a little active will help get their mind off of some of the other feelings that they're having, because they'll be able to interact with other people, and then just have kind of a bit of a routine. Because I don't remember the mom's name who talked about the self-care and all of that stuff, but even that has to become a part of your routine. Like, I like doing this. I'm going to do this for myself. And I think we have to just keep reminding our children of that. And it's helped me a little. Might not be a perfect fit for everyone, but just a suggestion or a thought.
Great.
Yeah, also, thank you for bringing that up, Yolanda. I put a link in the chat to a place on our website. Ashley Vega, our partnership coordinator and secretary extraordinaire, has been putting together a ton of different resources, because you're absolutely right. While a lot of the in-person job opportunities and internships have been postponed, at least, a lot of organizations are putting together remote opportunities, and she's been gathering those. And if you go to the website, that is a living document. She last updated it. It'll say up at the top when she last updated it. It was last updated yesterday. And she's continuing to add resources to that as we find things. We also have a couple teachers at our school who are trying to put together some probably unpaid student internships that happen at school to allow students to continue connecting. So having a few leaders per grade who, while teachers start to take their summer breaks, having students lead sessions for each other once or twice a week for their grade to kind of keep that community going and kind of be help students bridge between, when school ends in June and September, to kind of keep that community and those connections going. The application for that isn't quite ready yet, but probably in the next couple weeks, we'll be sharing that out. Other questions or topics people want to bring up?
I have the hard question. Is there any sense of what's going to happen in the fall?
I wish I knew the answer to that. The reality is we don't really know. We are hopeful. Things seem to be getting better, but I know there's also talks about there potentially being a second wave in the fall. So we don't really know. We are planning on opening up in September, but also being mindful that having plans in place in case we have to do modified schedules. And you've probably seen on the news that the DOE in general has been working under that to plan with our best hopes in mind that we can go back to school like normal on September 8th or 9th, whatever it is, right after Labor Day, but also having plans in place to make sure that if we do come back, that there's higher safety protocols for cleaning and things like that, and potentially some social distancing, but also having plans in place in case coming back to school all at once in person isn't the safest thing for society. I wish we had the answer to that, myself included, because we would love to be able to just say definitively yes, the first day of school is going to be this date. And the reality is we just don't know, and we probably won't know for a little while longer.
Was there any more traction or planning on the notion of kids coming in very small groups one last time this year to get their personal belongings?
Yes, we're still thinking about that, but we don't have a date or a plan yet. We're still kind of waiting to get some guidance on that. Any other questions? Oh, I do have one announcement. Next week on Wednesday, we are actually, we might have mentioned this at a previous meeting, we have our largest incoming cohort of 9th graders ever. There's somewhere around 172, 173 of them. So instead of doing just one accepted students night, we're actually splitting them up into several different sessions over the course of the day so that more students can engage. Some of your children on this call, I think, have actually been calling our current 8th graders and inviting them to attend, which has been really great. But one of our sessions actually happens to be next Wednesday at the same time when we have this. So we're not going to be able to have the weekly parent night, but I would love if any parents want to join our accepted students event and meet some of our incoming parents as well as some of our incoming students. I would love to have you as some of our maker people who can tell parents what our school is like. Chad, what's the best way if parents want to do that? What's the best way, or Venus, for them to let you know?
Please reach out to me and we will set something up by the end of the week. Definitely. I'll reach out to everyone by Friday, by the end of the day on Friday. I'll leave my email address in the chat. But thank you so much. If you can make it, that'd be great.
Yeah. All right, Venus, any other announcements I'm forgetting?
No, I almost forgot that one.
All right. Well, we will have this next one 2 weeks from today. But don't hesitate if you have questions in between now and then or just want to connect, feel free to just reach out to the school. We'd love hearing from you and answering your questions and hearing your feedback. So please just reach out and hopefully we see you all here. Maybe next Wednesday if you want to join our Accepted Students Night, and then at least the Wednesday after that for another session like this. All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you everyone for joining in. It's great to see you all.
Good night.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
You had video and audio?